Hello, this is Heather Gates, and I welcome you to the Stand in the And podcast, where we have honest conversations about the messy complexity of the human experience, where we get stuck, and how we find forward, in the and of it all where many things are true at once. This podcast is designed especially for those of us who want to make things more beautiful and better for everyone, and sometimes need reminding that we are human too. I'm so glad you're here. Welcome back to the podcast, y'all. I'm excited to be here today with one of my favorite early adopters, I think I'll call you, Rob Fields. Rob, thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I think before we get going with things, I want to give you a chance. I'm not one that's big on reading the formal bio, but I'm curious how you would introduce yourself so that the listeners are aware.
So I'm a family doc. I went straight to professional, huh? So let me regroup here. So I'm a husband and father, married 26 years almost, in another month and a half or so. 2 kids, 24 and 21, were grades, and home this week, which is becoming a rarity. Now I'm a family doc, and right now I am the chief clinical officer at Beth Israel Lahey. It's a big system in Boston, and been here 2.5 years, and like everybody else on the journey.
And perhaps the most enthusiastic Gator fan that I know. Let's just
Also,
add that.
true. Not a Gator fan. I don't think I own jean shorts any longer, but as much
Oh,
as
too bad. Too bad. You're welcome, everyone, for that
yeah,
visual.
that's right.
Um,
It is an audio only podcast, though, right, Heather?
yes, it is.
Thank goodness for
So,
me.
yeah, y'all got to start paying extra if you want visual.
Sure.
All right, if you want the visual and all of this. Oh, look what I have today.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
Do you remember the source of this mug?
I do. I do remember the sources.
Which I think is part true and part supposed to be ironic. So again, I'm forgetting that not everybody can see this, but this is a mug that says "I love meetings" that I actually bought in New York the last time I was there before COVID.
That's right. That was all.
And working with your team. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I do want to acknowledge the podcast journey that we have been on. Because what you didn't say in your intro is, I mean, I introduced you as an early adopter, and you do. I don't know if you would feel this is true, but I feel like you're the person who knows about stuff and is doing stuff before everybody else even knows what you're talking about.
I'll take that as a compliment.
I think so. I hope so.
Sure.
I mean, do you want to tell the story, what I see as our podcast story, or do you want me to tell it? How do you remember it?
Well, I remember it that we were at MAHEC in their conference room some time ago. For those that don't know, MAHEC is a nonprofit sort of public-private healthcare organization in Asheville, North Carolina, where I first met Heather. And we were in a conference room. I forgot what we were talking about, though. I don't know what the topic was. And you were a speaker. You were leading a meeting. And I know the topic of podcast came up.
But you don't remember why?
I don't remember exactly why. So I lose the thread there.
So as I remember, so you just said it was a conference room. And to clarify for everybody, it was like an auditorium of 200 people.
It's true.
Right? So there was a panel in the front. You were in the panel. Right. I was the moderator. And it was a conversation around population health. And at the end of it, part of the question was, where can people go to learn more about you or find you or whatever else? And you mentioned blah, 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 and you can follow me on my podcast. And this, in my defense, I don't know, was 10 years ago? It's been a minute.
At least.
And I, in front of 200 people, was like, well, in case somebody doesn't know, how do you access a podcast? How do you get to... I had heard of podcasts, but I was one of those people, not early adopters like Rob, who not only knows how to get to a podcast, but was making podcasts. So I, in front of everyone, basically said, I don't really know how to do what you're saying to do.
And did I say you should search the Google?
I don't know. You definitely jabbed me back.
But
Just to clarify the relationship.
only as a friend, Heather, you know that.
As a friend,
You
right.
only pick on the ones you love, as they say.
Exactly. So, know that that is where the podcast story started, was in a public jab about how do you even find a podcast. And then the story continues with you inviting me to be on the podcast, maybe twice,
Yeah.
of you changing, places of employment and inviting me on a different podcast. I don't remember the very important reasons that I had for not doing that. What we know to be true is that it terrifies me, so probably whatever I needed to say to you to not say that. And so it is hilarity to me that we find ourselves now in a podcast that I'm hosting
Yes.
and that I decided just to skip the part where you go be a guest on somebody's podcast to figure it out. You just make one yourself.
Love it.
Um, and I do wanna say, jabs aside, you have been a very generous patient with all of that, but very generous in your sharing of the knowledge that you have about this, right? Ashley and I joked on our last podcast about the team of people we have producing this podcast, right? It's like me and her and ChatGPT and the tech people now at the Asheville place where you sent us to get equipment. We're really patching it together, and you've been super helpful
You're
again.
external consultant.
Yeah, you are officially a podcast consultant. You should have said that in the beginning.
Yeah.
Um, and you have a lot of practice with this, and that
Yeah.
feels really helpful for people that are new, who can have people who know what they're doing support them in a way that doesn't make them feel ridiculous. So thank you for
Nice
that
of you to say, yeah.
skill set.
This way, Heather, you're in control, right?
Thank you for calling that out. Yeah.
But we're going deep.
Uh, yeah, I'm getting a little blushy actually. You called me out so quickly about that.
We're only 6 minutes, 7 minutes and 50.
7 minutes in, and we're gonna talk about I do want us to dig into that today, this sort of the squeeze, I'm gonna call it structure, not control,
Fair.
of structure and flexibility, because I think we sit on very different ends of that continuum. Before I do that, just to tee us up a little bit about the um, on here, really the point of the podcast is to honor the complexity of the human experience where many things can be true at the same time. Often, I think that means we feel squeezed between things that are seemingly feel like they should be opposites. Certainly in culture, I feel like we're more geared towards or than we are and. So we're just making space to let all that be true. And then also to talk about what are some places where we get stuck? What are things that feel helpful in navigating that? Really just as a place for curiosity. I'm also, in the context of that, I'm very big and will credit Chad Littlefield for this, not me, of connection before content.
You can't
And just
go
want
on
to
with the
do a
phrase. I think you know that.
that you use it?
I use it all the time. I was like, my friend Heather always says connection before content.
Good, and every time you say that, I say, "Just know that I got it from Chad." So Chad, if you're listening, we love it, and we're spreading it around.
Yep.
So I'm curious, we've already talked, I think maybe before we hit record about how I'm feeling today, but kind of what and are you standing in as you show up today, just as a person in the world to this I don't know. I imagine you don't get nervous about these things, so what are you how are you how are you in 2 words? How are you showing up?
Words. You know, I feel really good. I mean, it's actually um this stuff definitely doesn't make me nervous, and I'm an overshare by nature. So like, and I've known you for over a decade, so it's a little easier in terms of this context. But um no, I feel pretty good. It's interesting. I told you before we hit record, I just left I try to host a open forum. I host an open forum across the system where, $9 billion, 14 hospital system, 40,000 employees. It's a large system, but I've always um, been frustrated by the repetitive comments that there isn't enough connection with senior leadership in large organizations. So I try to have this open, like
Hmm.
very little of it is planned forum. I did actually have a guest that was planned and that I hoped would be able to join, wasn't able to join, and I was gonna cancel actually, but,
Mm.
I got a summer cold, like, I was like, I'm not not super into it, and, then decided last minute not to cancel, like, "Well, just see what happens." And so I just asked folks what they were thinking about, what questions they had, and left it super open, and we ended up, 55 of the 60 minutes just in conversation, and it made me feel really good. I don't know. So that's what I meant. It's like we can people are safe feel safe enough, at least this small sample of people that were joining, they felt safe enough to talk about stuff. We talked about their fears of
Yeah.
integration, all of them came from disparate systems. Excuse me. Um, Sorry about that. Came from different systems, um and so we talked about, like, what was threatening about systemness and coming together, and how did that
Mm.
feel, and are there examples where it went well, and what made it go well, and, it was cool. And then we went on another tangent about AI and technology and how I think we're on the precipice of, like, the Google, like, that level of impact, w and more positively, like, that level of positivity as it relates to tech, because mostly for
Mm.
healthcare, tech has been mostly bad. It's better quality and safer, but from a workforce and patient experience, I would say on net, it's been pretty bad from a
Ro
technology standpoint.
Did you just say that the system that you are part of leading right now is 40,000 employees?
Mhm.
Just I mean, the scale of that is stunning to me to hear. So when you think about complexity or systems and those sorts of things, just the number
Mhm.
of folks that you're thinking about. And
Yeah.
I wanna come back. So there's so much even about what you just said that we can make a whole podcast around tech and AI and healthcare and all of that. I
Yeah.
wanna actually focus on today, I think this my curiosity, is around the dance and structure and flexibility, like I said, and I imagine a lot of that comes up when you're thinking about being a system. Um, Before we do that, I'll acknowledge it's only fair, kind of the and that I'm standing in today. I feel very humbled by this process still. As I show up, I talk all the time, you know this.
Yeah.
I speak with you, I give talks, I am in meetings, I facilitate, and there's something still in it. Even I thought I was good. I was like, "Oh, we did 2 podcasts," and I was kinda nervous, but I'm gonna talk to Rob and it's fine. And then about 30 minutes before this, I was, like, turning the air conditioner down in the office. I was like, "Ashley, I'm sweating."
Is it the
So
recording of it?
I um, certainly, because it's okay. So, and then the other part, I'm humbled and I think surprised by the pressure that I feel around it.
Sure.
So, I think it is the recording. I think it's also um something about and it surprises me because I don't feel this way in my other work, but this sort of pressure to make it be something helpful. Because you and I can chat about pretty much anything for the rest of the day and feel entertained by ourselves.
Yeah.
So this sort of audience awareness, I think, and I hope it's not this sort of gold star hustle, wanting it to be good, but I think there is an element of if you're putting something out there, there is a judgment about it being worthy of consumption at some level, I guess, and I'm still sorting that out.
And that's fair. I think it's sort of the lens in which you view these things, right? If you're viewing it from the lens of a critic, like a movie critic or a music critic, then what you just said is true. It has to meet some sort of bar, right, for to add value. But you're the creator, and so you get to decide what the bar is. If in conversation, your insights and your thoughtfulness as just as a human, which you are the thoughtful human you are, if that's going to add value to one person that's listening, or there's a life lesson in there, or you just never know when it's going to hit. I'm always surprised about the random things that we say or do that actually have value and impact on other people that you just pass by.
Mhm.
So if that's your bar, then you're probably going to win no matter what, right? Because you are who you are. You're not going to put something out there that's self-centered or self-serving
Mm.
in that way. you're going to try to have honest conversations with people on this podcast. That's likely to have value to somebody. And so if that's your bar, you're good.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. So that something about what you just said, it jokes me up actually. Like, just be you and it'll be okay. So that feels nice. Yeah, and I think part of it is just I call it courage calluses. Like, it's like that's a new pair of shoes and it might rub in the beginning and eventually it feels okay. So part of I think just the process for me engaging in new is when I know it is a little helpful, when I know we are saying some random thing that feels resonant to someone,
Well,
it's but until you're in this big sea of uncertainty
totally.
and in surrender. So I think that part just still makes me a little sweaty. And as a quite confident person who again does a lot of talking, it surprises me and that makes me curious. Um, so that's where what I'm showing up with today. But I want to go back. Let's dig in and talk about, and I'm calling it structure and flexibility, but as you so lovingly referred to at the beginning, I may be talking about control that I don't know.
Yeah,
Um,
euphemisms are fine.
yeah, because I think this actually does look like a lot of different things. And I'm curious in particular to talk to you about it because I guess even based on what we've said already today, I lean more towards let's have structure and a plan. And you're fine getting on an open call with 40,000 people to talk about whatever they want to.
Well, there weren't 40,000 people.
I'm just saying they could have come if they wanted to. You were up for it.
Sure.
So, just the difference in us as personalities, as far as where we naturally fall, makes me curious about how we navigate then what feels to me like an approach. So, I'm thinking more about the way we intentionally create things. And I'm thinking a lot more lately too about not drawing a line between work and creative, right? Music crap. Like, I
Mm,
think all of it is can I make something that doesn't currently exist, whether that's a system or a health status or a song. So all of that looks blurry to me. And in search of that thing that we imagine, it feels true to me. I think this is a hypothesis that I'm testing is that most of the time we need both. It's not, well, we just need to go all in on flexible or we need to go all in on structure. It feels like it's always some combo
sure.
in human system. So I'm curious what about that feels true to you or what resonates, especially as somebody I think that leans more on the flexible side.
I mean, it all rings true. I think my immediate thought is that the sort of mental model that I would give to it is what I when I have mentorship or a direct report conversation around this around like almost anything that relates to style or
Mm.
methodology or things like that is that I think the difference between the best leaders and the either less experienced leaders, we'll say on the other side, um, is the number of different tools they have in their tool belt. Not like how effective they are in the one, but how they're able to flex from one tool to the other.
I love that.
And if I extend that to this conversation, then I would say that there's a absolute time for structure. You know, um, dramatic example might be incident command. You get
Yep, that comes up
big
for me too.
thing, right? Like
Yep.
if you don't have structure, you're done, right? And so when you have crisis, you need structure. That's an extreme example, but it's relevant, right? Um, but I don't know, a lot of other times you need space and you need openness and you need a collection of ideas or thoughts to make the outcome better. And I and you can create structure that does that. It's just harder. Like I
Yeah.
just tend to like a little bit of open chaos and then kind of form the thing as a result of all these, random thoughts and ideas and get it. Like um
Hmm.
mostly and I'm gonna chalk it up to impatience because
Hmm.
I'm not as good at like the really strict defined structure. It's not as comfortable for me. I can do it and I've learned how to do it. It's one of the tools in the tool belt, but it's not where I go to first. And it takes a long time for me. Like it takes a while. It takes a lot more intention and I want to move faster than the structure will allow me. So I would prefer to have it be grossly imperfect and shape it and get and go that route rather than over engineer it on the front end. But that's just me. And it's worked out. It also requires a fair amount of trust, I think, like the example I just gave,
Yes.
the open forum that we just had, or being comfortable in large groups with nothing prepared. I hate scripts. I just hate it with a passion. Um, and I fail almost every time when I have a script. If I'm reading in a big group, and I have prepared remarks, 100% failure rate. Like I can't stick to it. I go off and then and then I get back to it and I lose my train and then it's just really discombobulated. Um, and because I anchor heavily on like emotion, and
Mhm.
connection through emotion, um, rather than like saying the exact right thing. Um, I'm not so good. I have, a couple of my closest friends have their MFAs in poetry. They're really good with words. And when I write songs, like lyrics are always just, oh man, I'm just not good at it. It's just not my thing.
Mm.
So painful. So I need to be able to communicate something in a different way that isn't like choosing the exact precise word in that exact moment. And
Hmm.
it kind of translates into this other stuff too. Like I can't anchor on that because it's not my strength, I don't think.
So interested. So there's a lot in there. I think the we need all the tools in the toolkit is an important just meta message probably for a lot that we're gonna end up talking about on this podcast. Like, let's zoom out far enough to see that there's choices
Mhm.
and to acknowledge a natural tendency, right? I'm impatient. I like the open chaos. I don't have time. Structure takes time to get organized, and I don't wanna wait for that. I'm ready to just get in there.
Mhm.
And what you said, because I've been thinking a lot, knowing that I wanted to talk to you about this, like, what really is the difference? Because I do, and I'll give an example in a minute, but to acknowledge the trust piece of it. So I'm curious for you in that sort of your natural tendencies, do you feel when you were earlier in your career that this was still the same for you? Or is it more as I get more experienced over time? Because I think that's a piece of it too. Back to, just courage, calluses, and confidence and all the other things is I trust that we're good. I've done this enough now. Um, so yeah, I don't know if there's more to say about how trust in I assume we're saying trust in myself to handle whatever comes up. Maybe there is some elements of trust for whoever's on the other side too.
Mostly that for me.
Hmm,
And you're
interesting.
right. It wasn't the same at the beginning, but I found that most of the time people are actually super gracious.
Hmm,
Um, and it's relatively rare when someone shows their rear end, as they say, in large groups. And, people are usually really kind and gracious if given the opportunity.
hmm,
That's one thing that I feel like I've learned over experience where I used to get more nervous and realize, yeah, people are actually pretty cool most of the time. And then the second is that I realize that, and I tell my kids this all the time, it's hard to really, like, they always pick on me about Pop's life lessons, but
dad joke, no dad jokes. We
yeah,
can do
they're
Pop's
doing
life lessons, but no dad jokes
they're
today.
for sure sick of the dad jokes, but no, like, my daughter always says, like, "Here comes Pops with the life lessons." But, like, we're all so much more the same than we are not, and I didn't know that in my teens, 20s, or probably even my 30s, but probably somewhere in my, like, late 30s and 40s realized how much the same we all are. We have the same hangups, you're getting
Mhm.
nervous doing this thing. Probably everyone does to some degree,
Yeah.
there's something in there. Yeah, it's a lot for some, but, like, everyone has the same insecurities about how people view them. It manifests in lots of random ways, and it manifests sometimes in anger or being a jerk or all the things, but really if you have the opportunity to get to it, people are really surprising, and almost every time, the lesson I learned is that almost everyone is exactly the same, and that gives me
Hmm.
a huge amount of, like, it's self-empowering, I guess, or something. It's really empowering to go into a large room knowing, uh, that we're all the same. There isn't some weird power dynamic, and I can
Yeah.
say something that feels it's not exactly right, but feels human enough that people can, attach themselves to it or see themselves attaching to it.
That feels really helpful to me when I think about the podcast piece, right? And some of what we were talking about earlier. And like I said, I was thinking more about comfort with the flexibility and the openness being more trust of me. So it really feels like a helpful thing to shine a light on for me to think about the trust of everybody to
Mhm.
go, oh my gosh, I do trust y'all. And I know there are some mean people that put comments on the internet, so maybe don't do that. I'm very sensitive. But yeah, I love this notion of trusting the audience. Another curiosity I have is what shifts. I'm trying to think about because for the most part, we're talking about the or. Like we have structure and flexibility in the toolkit. When do you pick up which? One of the things that's become really clear to me in the past 5 years or so is how much my facilitation process
Mhm.
is squarely both at the same time. And I think part of it is in that sort of situation, it's a little less, and this is maybe it's different for different contexts, but in a facilitation, in a strategy session, there is an outcome that we're trying to get to. So I get nervous that just like showing up and being like, let's get there is too much, like it's unbound in some way. And if it's too tightened up, then there's not room to really have opinions and, um, handle the moments that come up and things like that. So increasingly my process, even in creating, like, let's say we're going to gather, your team to work on something, we're going to, I'm going to have a better understanding of what's important that we accomplish. And I am going to give us some structure around how we're going to show up and how we're going to facilitate that. And when I get in the room, actually, even like as part of the beginning intro section, I say to people, we have an agenda, and I want to tell everybody what that means to me and what it does not mean. In particular, for the folks that I call agenda watchers who are like, are
And
we following the structure and have we
right,
checked off the things? I say, we are having what I call a s'more meeting, right? Solid graham cracker start and finish. I know the ingredients in the middle, and we're going to let them be squishy.
right.
Which gives me then an opportunity to change it along the way. So it's, to me, very intentional around just from a neuroscience perspective, I think humans are comforted by both some certainty and autonomy at some level. So I'm always thinking about, even in the place where I have a structured activity or we're gonna do this, like, what are the ways that I can give people choice? Like, sit where you want, do it this way. It's always okay to do nothing. That part that I'm thinking about the flexibility or the autonomy or the whatever you wanna call that side of it. And then there's we may change the plan as we go, but having a plan going into it, just helps me some structure helps me with the surrender, actually.
Sure,
To know that this is where it's headed, it lightens the cognitive load of the day.
sure.
So there's something about timeliness. You're like, "It takes too long and I get antsy." I feel supported and served by that pre-phase
Sure.
where I can, like, set my future self up to not have to think so hard, to go, "Let me give this a skeleton, and we're gonna do this," and then I trust the improv that is facilitation
Yeah.
in the room, and that part in at least, and that's a pretty simple sort of example of where I think the tool is both.
Yeah, I don't disagree, and my guess, I'm sure there's some science around this, that your methodology is better than mine. Like,
We'll quote that for the internet
yeah, yeah.
on Instagram.
So the the idea that you would have a skeleton, if you will, or structure that, you can play around with, the jungle gym at the playground, that you have a structure there, but what you
Yeah.
do within it is, it could be anything. is probably right. I That's why I tend to hire or surround myself with people that are
Yeah.
better at it than I am to that help me, if I have an idea and we share ideas and we get to something and we wanna do something like that, especially in a group forum and we wanna get a project moving along, I lean heavily on
Hmm.
other people to kind of provide that structure and kinda move us around it, and then
Hmm.
I'm trying to be more conscious of not sabotaging the structure in the middle by asking, like, tangential questions or
Right. That isn't, we're not talking about AI in
yeah.
this meeting,
Right.
Rob. That's another day.
That's right. For example. Um,
Yeah.
but, I mean, that's how I try to make up for it. I mean, again, I can do it. I just
Yeah.
don't like to do it, and it takes me
Yeah.
longer. Some people are more naturally geared towards that, and so if you surround yourself with folks that are better at it, then, you kinda get to the same outcome.
Which is a great, when you think about tools in the toolkit, it's not only, "Oh, I can do this and I can do this." Another tool is just let me reach out to people who that is
Sure.
their natural way of being in their
Yep.
jam, and then together,
Yeah.
and it is so for facilitator, there will be the sort of, "All right, I need a little parking lot because Rob's gonna have a lot of ideas, and we can't cover them all today." But that sort of dance that can come across people when you acknowledge that we probably need both of
You
those
need both.
if we're gonna get to somewhere specific, because I do think it's different. Like, if it's just me and we're just gonna chat about this, and at the end of it, we'll have chatted about it, and maybe we learn something interesting. But to the extent that we have a success in mind that we have to move to, and it involves more people than just me, 'cause I think if it's just you go forth and wiggle around and do all the things, but when we have to bring folks together, um and so places that I think we get stuck in it is probably being all on one side or the other. Maybe that's due to natural tendencies or time. Because I think it's a really important point you said, is that so often, even in the meeting context, it's like, this is the hour that I have. I don't have the 2 hours that it would take to kind of create a structure and a process to, right? There's a lot of homework that actually goes into that. So
Mhm.
I think it maybe depends on, how high the stakes are.
Yeah.
It's just a thing to think about for both. How does this Oh, I wanna acknowledge, put a pin in a resource. I just mentioned a minute ago neuroscience, and I talked about certainty and autonomy. I don't know if we've talked before about the SCARF model.
Mm-mm.
So, what's his name? Dr. David Rock, who is now leads the Neuro Leadership Institute, talks about the SCARF model, as it relates to, and this is how I describe it, not them. So, David Rock, feel free to
Got it.
come on the podcast and explain how you actually want it to be talked about. But it's something that I was reminded of in preparation for this call today, just getting curious about this, the both and of structure and flexibility, and is that helpful? So SCARF is status, certainty, autonomy, relatedness, and fairness. And the gist of it is that these are things, depending on how we are implemented, that kind of can create threat
Hmm.
or support and ease.
Right.
And I think it's really helpful for, or has been for me, in thinking about sort of, I don't love the word change management, but rolling things out, doing things, planning gatherings, thinking about humans, is how can we do this in a way that honors that we will be impacted as people by those things. So I feel validated by the SCARF model in my hypothesis. I just wanted to say
Nice. Yeah, yeah.
that.
And it
Um,
makes a ton of sense for sure.
yeah, and I think it's a great research, as you know, and everyone will eventually. I am a fan of a framework that helps us think about all this
Sure.
messy, complex stuff.
Yeah.
So, how does, Rob, when you think, I'm curious from a system perspective and the work that you do at that scale and that complexity,
Mhm.
where the holding, right? If we see that there's value in structure and flexibility, how does that present itself in a way that feels challenging? Or, I mean, it may have been some of the stuff y'all talked about on your call this morning. I'm not sure. How does does that show up at all? I have
Um,
some guesses.
yeah, I mean, of course it shows up. I'm trying to think of, specific examples. I think that one example I think of is integration work.
Mm,
Where a young system, 6.5 years old or so, um, and there's a lot of integration work, like functions within a health system that existed at a local hospital or a clinic that are now being integrated into one big group. It's sort of like you
mhm,
all of a sudden have an adopted family that's 100 times the size of your small family that you had before. And that
mhm,
was a topic of the noon forum. We talked about it quite a bit. And I think that um, what we have learned in all of the various integration efforts over the last 6 years is that structure is key to success.
mm,
Um, that is one place that in order to, there's so much emotion and fear of all sorts of things. What the future is. Am I going to lose my job? Am I going to lose my autonomy? Um, a lot of focus on the sense of loss when there's integration work to do.
mm,
Um, there's so much emotion. You need to have some structure to the process of how you talk about it. What's the order of communications? What are the forms in which you communicate? Because if you add chaos and process, or lack of structure, maybe not full on chaos, but lack of structure and process on top of a truckload of emotion, it does not go well. That's like a, bomb blew off. And so I think when it has gone, excuse me, when it has gone well, it's been a thoughtful plan for the words we use, what we talk about and when. And it's never perfect, but it's always better when there's structure and a plan than, if you just kind of do stuff. And, randomly get folks together. You have to be really thoughtful about it. So that's one example where it comes up, on the regular. Um,
and part of what comes up for me there, I think you used the word chaos. I know originally it's like, calm the chaos you can,
Right.
and I think structure sometimes or I find when I get particularly when it and this is more at the personal level, when life feels particularly churny, I watch myself being like, "I must organize the closet."
Yeah, yeah,
You
absolutely.
know? We have to clean out the laundry room. It's like, what can I bring something to just feel like there's some predictability? Certainly, I think with all the uncertainty of COVID, I felt those similar behaviors of, like, it shrinks down to how do you control that?
COVID's a
Um
funny example though, Heather. Like, I think we may have talked about this before, but COVID was obviously insane on like at the meta level. For there was so much going on there.
Yeah.
Um, and there were lots of horrible things, but this has come up a lot that there was also such singular focus.
Mhm.
It was almost self-imposed structure, because 95% of all healthcare was focused on this one condition, and we were as an industry extraordinarily effective. I mean, yes, it was awful and lots of people died and, we'll be suffering the social impact of that for a long time, but it could have been much
Mhm.
worse. I
Yeah.
mean, there's so much credit that goes to literally everyone that worked through all the various systems to kind of not have it be worse and to be creative and all that stuff. But it was the singular focus and the structure that was absolutely required at the time to sort of plan like incident command at the Uber, like Uber incident command everywhere,
Yeah.
um, that allowed for really amazing things to get done, actually. And yeah, that's I think back
Well,
to your point.
and back to focus, so I think the example that I gave earlier about preparing for meetings and having a structure to lower the cognitive load, something that you just said prompted for me this decision, like that structure, right? It's sort of it shrinks. You talk about decision fatigue. It shrinks the decision so that you can then focus on right doing the things. If we're not having to make decisions about which 20 ways could this conversation go or what all the things could we do or focus on, it's like the structure is like gives us some support and some direction so that then we can go forward. What about system stuff, Rob, when we think about and I don't have a big health system integration experience the same way you do. And I think about experience that I do have in regional models where we have a regional approach and local level autonomy. And that to me, right, feels like the both and of those things that we do. Because I know you were talking primarily around structured process and communication during integration, but as far as the design of systems themselves, where we may have things that are consistent and standardized even, and local flexibility to do, sort of that dance. I don't know if it comes up in a way that you see the both and in that sort of configuration a lot too. Um, or kind of where people get stuck in that. I don't know, what learnings
Yeah.
are there to pay attention to when we're thinking about, the gains that can come from in particular, I think of, like, the economies of scale and the structure and the supports, like, we don't all need to have to figure out certain things, and I would like to be able to do this locally a certain way, so that sort of juggle.
Yeah. I mean, it comes up all the time and came up on this call too, but the whole system versus local, like system efficiency and local flavor or whatever, lots of variations on the theme comes up quite a bit. And I don't know what the right answer is and the balance of the two. It clearly is a concept that we all strive for in integration work. And I think it's true, right? Because relationships are local
Yeah.
mostly. Your relationship with your nurse, your physician, the front desk person, certainly for healthcare, those, you have an experience and hopefully a relationship with those folks that's where your allegiance is. I think that's hard for me as a system executive is that I think people conflate like what's actually important in the local thing. Like
Hmm.
the and I don't want to be dismissive, but like the things that people choose to take a stand on about to retain that local flavor is it never ceases to surprise me. Like, really, this is the thing like you're going to make a huge think about. Like, it's just it's
Yeah.
surprising based on all the other problems that we have to solve for in healthcare. Like, this is the thing that's really going to send you over the top. And
Well, that you're gonna pick, right? If part of what we've said in this is that autonomy is meaningful, sort of how do we predict what
right,
that piece of it is gonna be, and
right,
how we figure that out, and we could spend hours talking about from a people and process perspective, and of how you get to what what pieces are in the structure and what pieces go to flexible, and is it what you think it is, and who decides, and all
yeah,
that kinda stuff. Um, but I think what I hear mostly in you is like, there's not that this isn't an equation that gets solved. It's more a mindfulness just to operate with
yeah,
that we have to be thinking about those things at the same time.
1,000%.
Yeah.
And then at some point, oops, sorry for background. At some point,
Rookie mistake.
I forgot to turn off my reminder. um, at some point, though, you do have to make a decision,
Mhm.
right? And move. And that hope that that decision over time that people forget, which the reality is like 99% of the time they do. They forgot
Mm.
about the big stand they made about the thing that actually doesn't matter that much. Because it was never about the thing, right? It was about all the other things we
Mm.
talked about. And so they forget most of the time. Um, and then you build trust and you don't have the same issues as before
Mm.
when it all goes perfectly. If you fail and someone's experience is worse after the integration, then it's worse the next time. Well, that's it, right? Like I'm not necessarily striving for universal happiness. Like that can't be the goal because we would never do anything.
Across 40,000 folks.
Right.
Yeah.
But to some degree, I could strive for universal grace,
Mm.
and we try our best to get people there, do the thing, fill in the blank,
What do you
and
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
and do the thing, and that hope that over time people will see the value and feel comfortable with the newness of whatever the thing is, because that's really what they were most worried about is the threat of the new
Mm.
and the systemness and the loss of autonomy. And the most of the time, the reality is that your day to day in these integration efforts doesn't change that much. Like there's
Mm.
maybe a specific process or a specific form you do differently, but for the vast majority of these integrations, your day to day doesn't change that much. But you don't know that at the time, so that's why I think time tends to heal some of those wounds after a while.
Well, it speaks to me just the power of uncertainty.
Yeah.
Like, the impact, really all of this, and that's part of this flexibility side was just the itchiness of not knowing. I think on episode 1, I mentioned this, and you can tell me if I'm what did I call it? This sort of brain wire that feels negativity bias related. Like, when we think of uncertainty, we're usually playing out worst case scenario, what might happen.
Mhm.
And that's just, I think, on all of us to be mindful of. I'm having to practice, like, what if it's great? What if people love it? What would that be like? I'm curious, Rob, from a leader perspective, when you say that your goal, like success looks like universal grace, what what are some of the things that you're doing that you think help get you there?
Well, I mean, communicate and be around is one of them. I can't necessarily be physically around everywhere, but, to some degree, the podcast has always been a means for that. Um, the monthly forum that I just talked about is a means for that, like, how to not be a mystery and
Mm.
be human, um, and to be honest about, your fears and anxieties, or to crack a dad joke, or, you know, there was a
That's what everybody wants,
yeah, yeah,
people.
exactly. Uh, there was a forum with a bunch of primary care physicians and administrative leadership across all of our Beth Israeli primary care several months ago. And the CMO for primary care is a wonderful person, amazing leader. They had a break and trying to get everyone wrangled in. So I'm like, all right, hold on, give me the mic. And so I rapped DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince because it's the only
Oh,
rap that I know
wonderful.
verbatim. I only know the first couple verses. And like, it was silly and, could have been embarrassing, but instead it was, I think the way it ends up landing is humanizing a bit. Like, I'm a dork, right? Like, love the dork, it's fine. And then it turned from everyone talking to everyone like clapping, keeping a beat, and then we went on with our meeting. Like, I don't know, there's just like little stylistic things like that it just, I think you buy grace by just being human and being
Mm.
around and available. And I think for my experience as a leader, as you know, as an oversharer also of like, that's where the being willing to be an oversharer has actually really helped me. Um, because people may not need to share back. I don't expect that of them, but internally they're sort of processing, oh, he's like a normal dude like everybody else, like, my
Yeah.
whatever.
I do I do think that leadership can feel or be quite dehumanizing,
Sure.
So this sort of showing up to just be
Go ahead.
you, I didn't call you a dork, you called yourself that. I'll let you say the things. I also would not call you an oversharer, that feels judgy.
Fair.
So that's a self-judgment, but I do not accept of
Yeah,
you. I
fair
think
enough.
you are honest and you're telling the truth about your experience, and I'm here for all of it. Um, yeah, it's relational
Mhm.
is part of what you're saying. And, the part of it is there's when you think of success in human systems, whatever it is, part of it's like not a surprise. We're relational beings. So how we do the thing matters, relationships matter, communication matters. We lose track of it. You've heard me say 1,000 times, or certainly clients have, like, we're not robots, we are people.
Mhm.
And so, how to stay reminded of that, what does that mean for how we show up? Permission to show up that way?
Mhm.
And my guess is you're signing a big permission slip for 40,000 people when you show up as you in that way, because certainly sometimes it doesn't feel like that's okay to do.
It definitely doesn't feel that way, especially in the big corporate world, right? Like, it's not, um, generally the way it's done. But I mean, my lived experience is that inevitably when you make a mistake, which is gonna happen,
Mhm.
not just on integration, but on anything, that's where the grace comes in, right? Because then if at least there's a sense that you trust the values of the executives that are making decisions that may feel bad,
Yeah.
um, it eases the discomfort of it, the pain of it, and again, going back to grace, I think you get a lot of grace for this, in the best scenario, what you hear is that must have been really hard as an executive to make this really terrible decision
Right.
to reduce the workforce by whatever.
Right.
Um, but if people don't know you and don't trust you and don't really see the human in you, then it's 100% gonna go poorly, right? And not that it fixes everything, but it helps, right? Like, being human
Yep.
and really validating the fact that we're, like I was saying earlier, that we're all actually exactly the same. My title may be different, and we have all different lived experiences, but we're mostly all the same and have the same hangups. That becomes relatable instantly, and that buys you a lot of grace.
And not even that. So the human piece and knowing you the way that I do, what knowing you and knowing you as a human means is you care a lot about the well-being of people, right? It like
Sure.
opens it up to this place of, oh, we actually all care about the same thing. We're all here for patient success, well-being, these things. So it's not even to me what my guess is it piece of it that it opens up is this when we open ourselves to be known, we open ourselves up at a deeper level to be understood in the values that we hold. And even if we don't understand the strategy and the specifics and the tactics, we can understand that we're coming from the same place from a values perspective. And I think that is important and sometimes
Mhm.
gets missed in the shuffle of things if we don't make time for that to be understood.
Agreed.
Um, Yeah, I wanna keep talking about human, but before the clock runs out, I imagine you have a hard stop at 2. I am curious how the dance of structure and flexibility shows up for you as a creator in the
Mm.
right, in the songwriting space, and the me are you do you show up and we're back to the, like, no script, let's just see what comes up? What's your structure flexibility dance?
Um, yeah, it's pretty fluid. I you know, I I'm a musician first, and I said it earlier, like, I'm not really great with the lyrics, so the
Mm,
ideas come in music. I'm looking for something that hits, like, emotionally in some way. It's a chord, it's a something, it's a riff, and
interesting.
build off that, and then piece it together, and it usually takes me a really long time because first of all, I don't get to record every day at all. Like, it can be days or sometimes even a few weeks before I can kind of put everything together. So it's kind of working the idea a bit, and then the words come really slowly. And so that's
Mm,
the process. But I'm envious of people that have a process. There's a great podcast called Song Exploder that takes songs and talks to artists, and it deconstructs a hit song that artist has. It could be an individual or a group. It will actually, like, analyze the drum part and the bass part and the keyboard riff and where the words came from and where the artist was when they wrote the words or the music, etcetera. And then they deconstruct the whole thing, go through the whole process, and then play the whole song at the end. And there was one episode with Rivers Cuomo of Weezer, and he has this insane process where he journals every day random words, anything that he thinks about. It could be a narrative, it could be, formal prose, it could be just random words. He writes it all out and then goes back and reviews them and highlights them and circles things that he likes or things that sound interesting. And then he puts it in an Excel spreadsheet and indexes them by, like,
yes, it's the nerdiest thing
eh,
I've ever heard.
well, yeah, I mean,
I
he's
love
definitely
it.
an intellectual sort of dude, but, and then so he has it all indexed, and so he has an idea, he'll have a riff, same as I do, but then and he'll mumble words, like, in the Song Exploder, they play one of the songs, but they have the track where he was just mumbling sounds that aren't words, and then he started to find words that fit the sounds and the melody that he was going for, and then when he gets stuck, he goes to the Excel spreadsheet and said, "I need a phrase that has this number of syllables, and, it has, in this meter," and all that stuff, which is insane to me. I'm super envious. I'm like, "That sounds amazing."
Yeah,
Intensely intimidating and overwhelming for me to think about, but it's cool. I really
yeah.
admire it. I don't do that. I don't think I have the ability to really do that well, or maybe I just don't want to spend the time to figure it out to develop that muscle.
Right. You've already said that you're not patient enough to create such a
Yeah,
process.
that's right, exactly.
You need somebody to come in and create your spreadsheet.
Yeah.
And I think it's different, right, if you're starting at it from the music side or the word side. I bring this one up, and it's actually what prompted me to wanna even talk to you about this because I'm finding in my some recent creative pursuits that I'm surprised by what helps me in this. Like, I am doing some writing right now,
Mm,
um, on a book, and
nice.
went at it, all in on structure, and here's how it's gonna be laid out, and here's this, and I'm ready to and I'm not using it like, I'm just writing story. Like,
Mhm,
I'm opening it up and just writing story, and that feels right, and so this and maybe part of it is it depends on where you are in the process as far as that both and, like, I will need to come
mhm,
back to structure, and I'll obviously, like, to put a book out, needs to have some sort of
mhm,
plan, but I'm surprised by how and sometimes it feels overwhelming. So sometimes I'm like, I feel unbound and I don't know where to start if everything is possible. The purpose of the book is a little bit anchoring. So I'm playing with flexible in a different way there. And then on the podcast, I'm surprised by how much I do actually need to think about structure to show up. Because I thought it was going to be more like I talk to Rob all the time. Rob, let's schedule a call and let's chat. But part of with podcast is I have so much I want to say I have to have some structure. I have to give it at least
right,
some bounds,
right.
or I get tangled up in myself. And it's not even about I don't even think it's about what is the audience gonna think of this. It's like I literally could talk to you about 1,000 things,
Yeah,
so
sure.
I had to sort of narrow the list and get a little bit of a plan coming in. So I'm finding myself on the more right brain, maybe creative side, feeling surprised at how I want that balance to be. Um So
That's great.
you're all in team flexible though, it sounds like.
Well well, yes and no. I think that Weezer example is a really important, like, a great example of having to or being able to do both, like, he starts
Mhm.
with a totally unstructured, unfiltered process of just putting out everything out there and then going back and shaping it, and I think that's more I don't have that process for writing music, but I think that's more how I work. It's like, let's get
Mm.
everything out there and then, like, shape it how we go. I think the core layers there, again, doesn't the way
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
is just takes too long, and it isn't quite that organized, but it is the way I like to work, and that's why you
That it's
have
flair
editors.
first, right? You're, like, flexible first, and
Yeah,
then we'll find structure within that
yeah,
versus let's start with a structure and then open it up from there. That's
yeah.
interesting.
That's why you have editors, and that's why you have producers.
Right, right. Again, the tool in the toolkit that
Right.
is other people. We don't have to be great at this.
That's
And even I love some of the examples you give of, well, this musician does this way and I do it this way and we do it the other way. The point is there's probably a tangle of structure and flexibility in there, however you
always
get to it.
yeah, yeah.
Um, I'm noticing that it's been almost an hour.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm unfortunately I do
And you
have
have a thing, and I keep saying to people that I'm gonna try to make these 45 minutes, but I just don't think I can do it. I think our goal is less than an hour. So, at this point in the process, I need to tie it up so you can get to your other thing, and just say thank you again for being willing to be in the mess with me with this. Everybody else, Ashley reminds me that I'm supposed to tell you you can find wherever you need to connect with us is in the show notes. I am curious if
be sure
people
to rate the podcast also, Heather, you gotta tell people to rate the podcast.
Oh, rate it. So you
Yeah,
wanna rate it and
yeah,
put in a nice glowing review,
correct.
and I'm curious if how these conversations are landing for people in a way that maybe they can serve as a tool to go, "Hey, check so and so, check this podcast out. I wonder if what we're up to might need a different balance of structure and flexibility." Like, how much our conversations can help be prompts for future conversations. In that case, share the episodes. People need to follow it, right, so that they get them automatically,
Yep,
and everything else is in the show notes. I'll make sure to put a picture on Instagram of my awesome mug,
there you
from New
go.
York, and, yeah, just appreciate you, Rob, and
Yeah,
would
likewise.
say to everybody else, stay curious, keep humaning, and, we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Heather.
Bye. The Stand in the End podcast is supported by Human Centered Strategy, where we help leaders and teams build connection and strategy and complexity so that everyone can flourish. To learn more or to work with us, please visit us online at humancenteredstrategy.com or message me on LinkedIn.